folks, Scott here with my Simon Says Stamp October 2017 card kit. Let's see what we get this month. This is the Brushstroke Messages card kit. Here we have, of course, our inspiration sheet. Let's take a look at the supplies included. This is our stamp set this month. This is the Brushstroke Messages stamp. 5 brushstroke stamps. These are interesting. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sentiments here. And here's, looks like a little heart over here. All brush strokes. I guess I'm not going to be coloring with this kit this month. Then we have 12 sheets of double-sided 6x6 cardstock from My Mind's Eye Blush. 12 sheets with the this navy blue, pale pink, and I believe that's a rose gold embossing. It looks like one side of every sheet has some gold embossing, the other side does not. They all feature the same colors, also that off-white color there, ivory, I suppose. Polka dots, nice ombre over here. This is more of that rose gold embossing over here. Can you see that? Yeah, you can see that reflection. Polka dots and hearts, pink. I just can't win, I tell you. At least there's a nice dark navy blue along with the pink here. Some flowers with leaves, pink polka dots. Ooh, this is nice. Dark blue with the rose gold polka dots. 12 sheets of that. Those look like fun. Then we also get a spiral flower wafer thin die. This is in this little bag here. We actually get a die this month. It's a little wafer die. Looks like it does the outline of the die, of course, as well as cutting out the inner pieces. This is our flower die, spiral flower die. A jar of... a full, complete, big jar of Simon Says Stamp embossing powder in steel navy. Ooh, a dark blue embossing powder. That's nice. Really nice. Along with that, we get a bottle of Ranger multi-medium matte. Ooh, this is great stuff. Use this all the time. This will stick anything to anything. Just about. Ranger embossing ink pen. I really like these a lot. I have, I think, one in black and one in clear in my stash already. Always good to have another one on hand. An emboss it pen. Those are great fun. Works great with embossing powders. A detail glue brush. One detail glue brush. It's very interesting. I actually own a bunch of these. They're really inexpensive. They're really great for not only applying glue, but they're also really great for doing blending, especially with chalks, and or if you're trying to get into a really tight place with your watercolors. These are great for that. Very, very tiny, tiny little head there that actually has some soft, I think it's just kind of like a Q-tip, soft cotton right at the tip there. That's cool. Always good to play with. We also get 2 Simon Says Stamp metallic cream envelopes. Metallic cream. I guess I can kind of see a bit of a sheen there. Cream envelopes. And then we get to our cardstock. We get 1 sheet each. Ooh, there we go. We've got 1 sheet of burnished rose mirrored cardstock. One side only, the other side's white. Burnished rose mirror cardstock. That's pretty. And then we get 1 sheet each of Simon Says Stamp cardstock in soft navy, ivory, and smoke. Soft navy, ivory, and smoke. I guess I'll have to bring in some of my own cardstock. This is going to be a toughie. I tell you folks, I worry that I don't have any ink that will match this color palette. I worry that I don't have any papers that will match this color palette. We'll figure out something, folks. Well, I dug through my cardstock and I couldn't find any cardstock that actually really matched these cardstocks. I have some gray. It's a much lighter gray than the smoke. I have some blue, but it's really not the right color. This is a very specific navy, soft navy blue. Even my off-white cardstock did not match the cardstock in the kit, which is, of course, repeated in the pattern paper. So for the first time ever with a card kit, I cut my card bases apart completely. I cut the blue and the gray cardstock into fours. That gives me 4 blue card bases and 4 gray card bases and 2 ivory card bases. So those are what I'm going to work with. First time I've done that, it kind of hurt me a little bit, but just took these, cut them in quarters, put them on a white card base. I see people do this all the time, covering up their card bases with pattern paper and stuff. So I figured I would jump on the bandwagon. There's my 10 card bases right there. Let's get rolling. After striking out with my matching cardstock in my stash, I decided I needed to see if I had any inks that matched any of these colors. I fiddled around and looked at all of my reds, pinks, and grays. I really don't have any grays. I think my iced spruce is probably the closest to gray I have. I do have some Stampin' Spot from Stampin' Up! Night of Navy, that actually matches the navy in the card kit very well. So I do have one stamp color that will go well with this kit. I decided to go ahead and use my gray cardstock that I do have in stock. This is standard Staples cardstock in gray. 250 sheets for 15 bucks. I use this stuff all the time for templates and mock-ups. Now this stamp set, I had a hard time getting inspired with this stamp set. Nevertheless, I do start playing with my stamps to get rolling with the kit. I like the pattern paper in this kit very much. There was one sheet of pattern paper that had the most embossing on it. So this is my first card. Just wanted to say you're amazing. This is that pattern paper that had that large part of the gold embossing. I cut that out with a stitched rectangle die. I think I used almost all of my stitched rectangle dies this month. I love these. These are Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle dies. I think the stitching is just a really classy touch when you're cutting out squares. I used these a lot this month. I did cut a piece of my gray cardstock down to 4 inches by 5 1/4, and then used the Emboss It pen from the kit to draw little lines on the 2 sides and emboss them in that great steel navy embossing powder that we got in the kit. It's really pretty embossing powder. It's got a great shine to it. I put this together and then realized that this was a little bit too much of an expanse of all one color planes. So I went in with my Versamark ink and stamped one of the brushstroke stamps on top of the copper. We're going to call this copper for me. And embossed that with silver. I did bring in some silver embossing powder. This is Ranger silver embossing powder, ultra fine. I like this. Since we had gray in the kit, I figured we could get away with some silver embossing as well. So I embossed that medium-sized stamp on top of the copper embossing. Embossed the sentiment with Versamark and the steel navy embossing powder. Really nice. That emboss really, really, really nice. This is a lovely card. I'm thinking that with the navy and all the pinstripes and polka dots that I might be able to go very masculine with these 10 cards. So this is card number 1. Just wanted to say you're amazing. I also have here's something in my stock. These are Nuvo Crystal Drops Navy Blue, matched perfectly. About the only thing in my stash that actually matched very well with the navy cardstock in the kit. Again, this is on top of a white card base, but the navy cardstock gives a frame on the outside. Just wanted to say you're amazing. Card number 1. Now my second card, I wanted to play with embossing with the die instead of actually cutting it out. So I practiced a couple times on a little piece of that mirror cardstock. Once I had it too much pressure and literally cracked the paper a little bit. And once I softened it up a little, I got a really nice impression, a nice embossing without cutting through on that great mirror cardstock in the kit. So for card number 2, you're going to rock this. I embossed the spiral flower wafer die in the mirror cardstock. These 3 pieces are cut down to 1.5 inches wide by 3.25 inches tall. I matted those on some gray that I had taken my emboss it pen, covered the edges, used the silver embossing powder on the mats. So these are all matted with a little silver embossing powder. Put this all together. You're going to rock this. That's embossed in the steel navy embossing powder on top of that mirror cardstock. I like this a lot. I was able to add some more of the Nuvo Crystal Drops in navy blue to the bottom. When I was first done with this card, it felt a little dark to me. So I dug out my Love from Lizzie peel-offs, my old standbys. She had some great silver glitter peel-offs a couple of months ago. So I dug those out and actually added just a little touch of the silver glitter peel-offs above these 2 and below the center one. And I think that added a nice brightening effect to this whole card. It's very reflective. Boy, look at that. Love the polka dots, love the pinstripes. You're going to rock this. Very masculine card, all on the soft navy cardstock. So I decided to emboss some gray cardstock with the silver embossing and some white cardstock with the steel navy embossing powder from the kit. So this is my embossing powder, this is the kit embossing powder, and cut out some of the spiral flowers from both of those. Now here I used the negative parts of those flowers along the edge of the soft navy cardstock. I took a piece of my gray cardstock, used a stitched hillside die to cut the edge of that. Oops. There you go, cut the edge of that. I took one of those pieces of blue pattern paper and did a random set of emboss it lines and emboss those with the steel navy embossing powder. Not quite a pinstripe. I wish the emboss it pen had a really fine line. I think that would be very groovy. But this is very nice. A thank you card embossed on gray cardstock. I did use my Ellen Hudson stitching lines die to add a stitch line along this side of the gray. So this is one piece of gray behind this pattern paper that's been hopped up with some embossing powder. This is fun. I don't think these look very much like flowers when you're just using the interior of them. I don't think you can tell, but I actually embossed the die on the edge of this card, which was ultimately not very successful, because if you emboss it once and then go through to emboss it again, it flattens out the first one. So by the time you get done with 5, you've got 1 really good embossed and 4 not embossed. But those are underneath the interior die cuts here. It's a lovely thank you card, very masculine as far as I'm concerned. Again, on a white card base. I had the spiral flower parts of the blue and silver die cuts that I had done. So I added some of the mirror cardstock to that and worked my way to this card. A nice happy birthday card. I like to think of this as fireworks. You may think of this as flowers, but I like to think of this as fireworks. I actually started this card on one of the ivory card bases and was like, oh no, those look just like flowers on the ivory. So I thought that moving it to the soft navy cardstock would make it look more like fireworks. So that's actually the spiral flower die in the mirror paper from the set, in my silver embossing, in the steel navy embossing from the kit. Each one of these is 3 layered on top of each other, just offset enough. I used the Emboss It pen to draw my lines and the little explosions and emboss those with my silver embossing powder. I did use it's one of my greatest finds lately, a Sharpie extra fine point in silver to add all the little dots around. I think this is a fun card. I think it looks like fireworks. I think everybody I've shown it to has gone, oh, those are pretty flowers. But I was trying to, again, keep it masculine. Happy birthday. This is embossed on the mirror cardstock, and there's a tiny, tiny, tiny little mat of gray around that to kind of pull in the silver. I think this is a fun card. Again, great glow and shimmer on all of these cards. So again, I go to my stitched rectangle dies. I think I used every stitched rectangle die I have except for the smallest and the largest. There was a little peek of this, a sneak peek of this on my Instagram account. I did 3 different pieces. Actually, this is all from one pattern piece, and cut out stitched rectangle dies of 3 portions of that had the navy and the embossing on it. This is one of the pattern pieces that had that nice brush stroke of copper down the side. This now is on the gray cardstock, the smoke cardstock from the kit. Again, I used the embossing pen to go all the way around and embossed a straight line of the steel navy embossing powder from the kit. I did emboss this sentiment twice. I used my Tim Holtz stamp platform, stamped it with Versamark ink once, embossed that with the steel navy embossing powder. Then when it was cool, I put it back in the same place on the platform, stamped it again with Versamark, embossed it again. Got a nice little dimension on that. It's really, I don't know if you can tell, but it's really nice, really great embossing powder. I love that embossing powder. This is a nice card. Again, very masculine. You got this, another great card. We're working our way through the sentiments on this. I've got, that's 5 sentiments from the kit. There are only 6 sentiments total. My last sentiment to be used is the "you are loved" sentiment. And so how do I make a masculine card with a "you are loved"? So this is what I came up with. I do like this and think you could get away with giving this to a guy, or a guy could get away with giving this to somebody. Again, that great navy pattern paper with the embossing, great fun. I cut that piece out of a Doris nesting square die. I cut the heart out of a Doris nesting heart die. Now these are, I was able to capture just a little bit of the embossing on the side of the heart there. I thought that was really nice. Just a touch of that, and I don't think I needed anything else with that heart. I did stamp the brushstroke heart at the bottom of the heart here. This is just a couple of strips of that mirror cardstock. This is all on the smoke cardstock from the kit. And this, of course, is the heart brushstroke stamp, stamped in Night of Navy. Works very well, matches quite well with the navy blue in the kit. I did it up and down just for interest. I didn't think that stamp particularly read heart, but it's okay. You could probably make a nice flower out of that too. So last month's set was all about birthdays, and I made, I think, 6 birthday cards last month. So I figure I have used all of the sentiments now. I don't really need to make more birthday cards, but thank you cards are always useful. So I came up with this thank you card. Again, that pattern paper with the embossing, that pinstripe, love that, love that. And after I had seen on this, my sentiment was over the embossing just a little bit. So I thought it would be great fun to put this thank you sentiment on this nice piece of pattern paper going across the embossing and onto the white. You can read it just fine. Thank you. That's layered up on some of the polka dot pattern paper. That's layered up on some of the mirror cardstock cut with a stitched rectangle die. This is that pinstripe pattern paper. 2 simple strips of that mirror cardstock cut off and glued to the edges. Really smart, sharp, straightforward, masculine thank you card. So do you see a theme developing with my cards this month? So I bring out those stitched rectangle dies. So useful. I can do another thank you card. We come up with this. I like that there were 2 different polka dot pattern papers in the kit. One had regimented line by line polka dots. One had intermittent, just random polka dots. So I cut with the stitched rectangle dies. I cut some of the mirror cardstock with stitched rectangle dies. This is stamped with Versamark ink. I didn't have any gray ink, but I knew that if you Versamarked on cardstock, it would do a watermark. So I figured I'd Versamark there. I waited hours for that to dry. I dusted it. I used my powder tool on it. I used my heat tool on it. Every time I went to add a little bit of embossing powder to it, it stuck to that Versamark completely. I could not get it to not stick because I was going to emboss the thank you on top of the watermark, but could never get the Versamark to totally give up its stick. So I decided to go ahead and stamp the thank you in that Night of Navy Stampin' Up ink and just stamp that right on top of the Versamark and then embossed the whole thing with clear embossing powder. Yes, I brought a little clear embossing powder in. Great frames that you can make with those stitched rectangle dies. I did raise the mirror cardstock frames up. I used some of those Doris strip adhesives that we got a few months ago with our kit from Simon Says Stamp. Raised those up on some foam tape and left the others right against the card. Again, this is on that smoke cardstock. I haven't quite used all of the brushstroke stamps yet, so I've got to dig in and figure out some ways to use the brushstroke stamps. So here we go. This is on the ivory card base. This is some of that, again, that random polka dot pattern paper. I used the 2 long brushstroke stamps to stamp on top and bottom here. Again, in that Night of Navy Stampin' Up ink pad. A couple of strips of the mirror cardstock go down the center. And this Be Amazing, I recently got this stamp set on sale at scrapbook.com. This is the Richard Garay Be Amazing stamps and dies. I think they come together. I think you get the 2 stamps and the 2 dies all in one kit. This was on sale. This is very much in line with the kit. I mean, we've got Just Wanted to Say You're Amazing over here. So here's a good encouragement. Just be amazing. I like the double line at the bottom, the double line at the top, and then that double line behind the sentiment kind of repeats that throughout the card. I did stamp the Be Amazing in Versamark ink on vellum and emboss that with the Steel Navy embossing powder. It's really pretty. I did cut that out with the die that came with the stamp set. Great die. I stamped it, cut it out with the vellum. I ran the vellum through my Xyron sticker maker, cut out a piece of fun foam with the die, stuck the two on top of each other, glued that down to our card base. So we've got a really nice, chunky, almost embellishment with the sentiment here, and a nice texture. Love that embossing powder. That's absolutely gorgeous. Look at that. Again, very masculine. If you haven't noticed, I haven't used any pink in this kit. When I first saw the unboxing for this kit, all I could do was sigh and go, oh my goodness, more pink, more pink. Even if it's soft pink, it's pink. And here I've got 9 cards that have not a stitch of pink on them, but every card features either a die cut or cardstock or pattern paper from this kit. This is a very sedate color palette, especially for me. So for card number 10 this month, I had to bring some color into my life and some color into yours, I hope. This is the last brushstroke stamp that I haven't used this month, so I broke out my archival inks. Now I have a simple collection of rainbow colors in the archival inks. I, of course, used my Tim Holtz stamp platform to stamp my nice rainbow of brushstrokes across this ivory cardstock. This is deep purple, manganese blue, emerald green, monarch orange. Yes, I didn't use the archival ink yellow. It's got a little bit of a darker, almost golden tone to it. So I went into this is the Simon Says Stamp Lemon Zest Hybrid ink. We got this in a kit 4 months ago, 5 months ago, but that gave me a much better yellow. So I actually used that yellow with the rainbow. Everything else was from my archival inks. This is monarch orange and vermilion for my red. Now the thanks, I have a Lawn Fawn scripty thanks die that I've had for a while. I used some stick-it adhesive to attach some cardstock to some fun foam. Then cut it out with the Lawn Fawn scripty thanks die, and then colored it with my alcohol markers. Now there's a faint ombre going on there. I don't know if you can even see it. It's very faint. It's a little bit lighter at the top, a little bit darker at the bottom. Covered everything with my Spectrum Noir sparkle pen, a little glitter on everything. This is a great thanks. That gives me 4 thank you cards for this month. So I got a little bit of Scott working here, but basically a great set of masculine cards. I love the navy. I love the pinstripes. I even like the brushed rose mirror cardstock. I have a decent amount of supplies left. I only, believe it or not, I've got a good chunk of that mirror cardstock. Believe it or not, there were only 3 pattern papers that I did not use at all. I used every other piece of pattern paper. These were the pattern papers that had pink on both sides. So I didn't use those 3. I did use bits and pieces from every other pattern paper in the kit. There's where I cut that heart out of. Here's the piece I used to cut those 3 stitched rectangle dies from. You can tell, artfully missing all of the pink. It gave me great personal pleasure. If you know me and have been following me at all, you know I've been getting a little tired of the pink. I do have my 2 envelopes left. That embossed pen is terrific. I use multimedia matte all of the time. This steel navy embossing powder is terrific. I really, really like that. some nice sentiments and stuff in this. This will all go in my stash. Once I realized that I could make a bunch of cards without any pink, I kind of dug in with gusto and relish. These are my 10 cards for the Simon Says Stamp October 2017 Brushstroke Messages card kit. If you'd like more detailed information on any of these cards or better pictures and or product links, check out my blog at cardcutups.wordpress.com. Thank you so much for joining me, folks. I hope you had a good time. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, like me, list me, pin me, post me, share me with all your friends, and happy crafting!